Yeah, sure, we all know this is ultra turbo mega broken. So is this. So is this. But what about this? Is this broken? Well, it depends on who you ask. And who they play. Let's get into it. This video is sponsored by the Fast Snail 9-in-1 charging station. Connect it to your Switch 2, original Switch, or Switch OLED, and quickly charge your Joy-Cons all at once, even with a mixed setup. Its clever magnet-based bidirectional design prevents incorrect docking while keeping your electronics safe, with clean airflow to the console and certified protection against overcharging and surges. And on top of all the fancy stuff, it's also affordable with fantastic Amazon reviews, so doesn't get much better than that. You can check it out for yourself, along with Fast Snail's other products at the link below. No need to beat around the bush, our first entry is Kirby's Inhale. It's hard to think of many moves where its quality varies so wildly depending on the matchup. Personally, I think the ones where it tends to help Kirby out the most are against zoners. I think Samus's Charge Shot is probably the prime example because A, it's legitimately extremely helpful in the matchup. Kirby generally has pretty poor anti-zoning and zoning tools. And B, it's also extremely easy to use. You really just point yourself at them and press B. Now, if you want to hit the lab, there is a bit of fancier stuff you can do with it, but not that much, and honestly, it's just purely a bonus. And you certainly have some other fantastic ones in there. Patooey famously carries one slow character. Why not a second? Kirby with Joker's gun is legitimately really annoying. Shulk's Monado Arts, that one speaks for itself. Of course, at the other end of the spectrum, you've got your total garbage you would never seriously go for. You know, Kirby landed a Warlock punch in top 8. None of those words are in the Bible, but thankfully that list is not too large. I would say the list of great ones substantially outnumbers it. In the meaty part of the spectrum, though, there are a whole lot of neutral specials that are just fine for Kirby. You know, they help his neutral out a little bit. They give him certain combos that he wouldn't normally have. They open up some new recovery tools, that kind of thing. That's great and all, and Kirby players would generally be happy to have those tools, but the question they always need to ask is, am I happy enough to have it that it's worth the risk of going for Inhale? Because the thing is, Inhale itself, unfortunately, is not all that great at command grab. It's small, it's laggy, it's slow, and Kirby himself is not particularly well set up to take advantage of command grabs. He's also fairly small and slow. He's a low jumper, so he has trouble surprising people in the air or on platforms, and he doesn't really have any pressure tools like, say, a projectile of his own that he can run behind. That means even upgrading it to a better command grab neutral special, which there are quite a few of, is still kind of a sketchy prospect. Kirby will have the same problem. And of course, it also means giving up Inhale cheese. Everyone loves Inhale cheese. So yeah, in the majority of competitive play, Kirby's Inhale and the hats that it grants him are perfectly acceptable to solid tools at most. In the handful of matchups where that doesn't apply though, yeah, it does look pretty broken. Okay, heading into anti-projectile territory, we have Villager and Isabelle's Pocket. Well, I mean, Inhale is technically an anti-projectile tool, but no, it's not. So it makes sense why an anti-projectile move would end up on this list, right? The more your opponent relies on projectiles, the better it is. If they don't have any projectiles, it's purely like a B-reverse movement tool with a tiny bit of invincibility tacked on at the start, which, you know, isn't the worst thing in the world, but meh. If they have a projectile they occasionally chuck out for a bit of space control, it's okay. And then if they have big kill projectiles that they lean on a lot, it's actually quite good. Especially because if the projectile is powerful enough, both Villager and Isabelle have guaranteed unblockable shield break setups. Where I think this truly falls into the realm of broken, though, is against item characters. We're talking people like Link, who can pull a bomb, Diddy Kong, who can pull a banana, Rob, who can pull a gyro, and notably, they can only pull one at a time, and if it's in Villager or Isabelle's Pocket, it's still considered pulled. They can't pull out another one, so you completely shut down that entire aspect of their gameplay, which is almost universally an aspect they heavily lean on. Theoretically, you can just deny your opponent a core part of their game plan until they take your stock, which is a lot harder to do because you're denying them a core part of their game plan. Have fun playing neutral without a banana, Diddy. Have fun purely with a spin attack recovery, Link. What does Wii Fit Trainer even do without header?
Game over, man. It's game over.
Now, I'm not saying this one tool makes these matchups unwinnable by any means, but it definitely helps, and honestly, it's pretty stupid, and I really don't think it should be a thing. It might be a technical consideration, you know, they're controlling exactly how many physics-based items can be on stage at any given time. I don't know, but I can't say I'm thrilled about that choice either way. All right, another 2-for-1. Coming up next, we have Ryu and Ken's Focus Attack. So, hey, You got any of those multi-hits? The ability to tank exactly one hit is an extremely polarizing trait in Smash. In Street Fighter 4, where it originated, it was a universal mechanic, so characters' movesets could be designed to accommodate it more. In Smash, that's not a thing at all. Some characters essentially can't do anything to break it. Now, it's not a total get-out-of-jail-free card against those characters with no multi-hits or situational multi-hits. They can still attack you repeatedly, but you can still rightfully feel fairly safe in those matchups as compared to, say, Dark Pit, my main, who essentially just has the privilege of not worrying about focus attack whatsoever. And of course, there's a range to all this, right? Back in Smash 4, I remember thinking how clever it was seeing Corrin players use down air to break focus. That was a pretty cool adaptation, but man, they still sure would like to be able to swat them out of the sky with up air. If there's one thing Corrin players love, it's their up air. And against characters who really struggle with it, it's a frame 1 escape option that you can cancel on demand, and if your opponent guesses wrong, you can just kill them with it. Which is broken. Something a bit different here. Let's talk about Snake's Crawl. I've always known this was a decent option other characters didn't have, but over time, I've become increasingly impressed by it. You know, it's got its obvious uses. It's harder to hit you from the air, it primes down tilt very well, it lets you duck under certain grab hitboxes and things like that, not super reliably, but it can happen. A step up from that, though, is its projectile protection. It can come in very handy against a Falco player, for example. But, you know, Falco's lasers certainly aren't a bad option, but they're not absolutely insane either, and shielding them generally works just fine. And against a lot of characters who lean on their projectiles way more, they tend to be able to hit Snake. Then you get to some more obscure matchups like Robin, for example. In a situation like this, Robin can actually be a bit stumped. None of his electrical projectiles can hit Snake. His fire one can at the proper spacing, but that's easily reactable. And he has trouble physically getting over there as well. And as a result, I've noticed that this is a matchup where Snake's Crawl really comes into play. I'm not a Robin player, so I can't personally testify to this, but damn. That looks really frustrating. Snake, of course, isn't the only character with a low crouch, he's not the only character with a crawl, he's not the only character with a low crawl, but I think it is especially well set up for him. He's quite a tall character normally, so that's obviously mitigating a weakness, but on top of that, he also has replenishing resources. Kirby, in a similar situation, for example, can also crouch under these projectiles, but he doesn't really gain anything for doing so. With Snake, on the other hand, this gives him time for, say, his grenades to go off, so he gets to replenish the count there, and at the same time, he gets to close in for free, made all the more dangerous because of how long-ranged his down tilt is, and if we want to talk about range, dash attack is definitely in that conversation too. That's a factor which applies to every matchup to some extent, but yeah, it's the ones like Robin where he really gets to cook. Now, some people might say that Snake's Crawl isn't a proper move and doesn't belong on this list, and those people are going to be real upset about the next choice here. We've got Bowser's Tough Guy and Kazuya's Tough Body. This is passive armor that both these characters get. Bowser's Tough Guy is stronger than Kazuya's Tough Body, but the principle's the same for both. And what it does is prevent flinching if the hitbox would deal under a certain amount of knockback. Now, for a lot of characters, this is essentially totally irrelevant. The most common use case where it becomes relevant is against characters with rapid jabs, which, yeah, it can be annoying sometimes, but you know what? It's pretty rare to find a character who seriously leans on rapid jab. They can generally do some mix-up stuff anyways, and in Ultimate, a decent amount of them have the option to choose between a 1-2-3 or a rapid jab, in which case we're right back to it not mattering. And almost every other hitbox in the game, including multi-hits, deals enough knockback to where this doesn't really protect you. But not all of them. If you're named Mega Man and your entire game plan is based around pew pew pewing, I hate to break it to you, you can be in for a rough stretch here. Those Mega Buster attacks deal enough knockback at point blank to break the armor comfortably, but considering how often Mega Man really wants to lean back and space the further shots, it really fundamentally changes that matchup, because Bowser in particular can just barrel right through. That's probably the most famous, noteworthy example, but to list some other relevant ones, you have Ivysaur's Neutral Air, Luigi's Fireball early on, Simon and Richter's Holy Water, Terry's Jab, Inkling's Rapid Jab. Inkling does thankfully have the option to choose a 1-2-3, but they'd still really like to be blasting you. And hilariously, Hero's Magic Burst. Those are all nice, but Mega Man alone warrants putting these on the list. It's such a specific middle finger. Okay, heading back into proper move territory and back into anti-projectile territory, next up we have Rosalina and Luma's Gravitational Pull. This has quite a bit of overlap with the pocket in a number of ways. First off, it's obviously just very good general projectile protection, which is extra beneficial in Rosalina's case because she also gets to guard Luma against chip damage. And it's also especially dangerous against item characters. She doesn't get to completely shut down their game plan, but it still puts the item in her hand. But if we're being honest, I'm just here to talk about Ness.
Okay.
Back in the Smash 4 days, particularly early on, Ness Rosalina was actually a pretty relevant matchup, and it was notoriously not great for Ness. Sure, PK Thunder is technically vulnerable to any kind of anti-projectile move, but Gravitational Pull is fucking huge! So all Rosalina needed to do was knock Ness off stage, put him in a position where he had to recover with up B, and then just get in his general vicinity, and he was dead. Now, I will say, I heard this described as unwinnable for Ness a lot. That was never really true, and over time Ness players did get better at avoiding that situation as much as possible, but you flat out just couldn't always avoid it, and whenever you couldn't, that should be lights out. Things changed with Smash Ultimate though, because directional air dodges came back to the game, something Smash 4 didn't have, and this turned out to be a fantastic trait for Ness specifically, especially because he has one of the best ones. And as a cherry on top, PK Flash also doesn't put him into freefall anymore, so he even gets to protect his recovery upwards more effectively. As a result, using Gravitational Pull against PK Thunder doesn't really matter anymore. Is what I thought I was gonna say, but when I started researching this video, I found footage of it within like 2 minutes of looking. Yeah, no, as it turns out, the good old days never really left. This trick is a bit harder to pull off than in Smash 4, but make no mistake, it's alive and kicking. And it's one of those situations where even if you don't see it play out directly, the threat of it is still so prevalent that it often forces Ness players into fundamentally different lines of recovery, often translating to significantly worse and more exploitable ones. And I, as a Smash 4 competitor, find that very funny. And then next up we have our last anti-projectile move of the video, Mr. Game & Watch's Oil Panic. Yeah, it always gives you a bit of movement in every matchup. Yeah, sure, having a reflector is often pretty nice, but its OG use was specifically for energy-based projectiles, and in those matchups where that still matters, oh my god, it's so broken. This is Shiny Mark, the best Pikachu player in the world. Even though Mr. Game & Watch is generally agreed to be a tough matchup for Pikachu, Shiny Mark is holding down the fort well in this game, despite the fact that he's not allowed to use any Thunder Jolt, which is often cited as Pikachu's best move and the only thing he really has to control space with his stubby hitboxes. But oh, what's this? Mr. Game & Watch doesn't have stubby hitboxes, and maybe that's getting to Shiny Mark a bit because he feels the need to throw a Thunder Jolt here. Into the bucket it goes. Then the match goes on. Okay, good discipline, good discipline. Oh, there goes another one. Don't do it again. Okay, good. Ah. Oh no, that's 3 in the bucket. Don't put 3 in the bucket, because now we have to look at the consequences for doing that. Oh, dead at 40. Off a combo, because Oil Panic is insanely easy to combo into when it's frame 2 with that enormous hitbox, and it's also just stupidly strong even when you put weak projectiles into it. I don't understand why. And the thing is, he even did that across multiple stocks. There's no counterplay to Oil Panic besides not letting Mr. Game & Watch trigger it because you can't knock it out of him. He respawns with the resources. Legitimately just a baffling move. And at number 8, we have Bayonetta's Bat Within. Bat Within is a frame 1 escape option, which is a very rare trait to have in Ultimate, and the vast majority of them are attached to busted attacks. This one's a bit different. Generally speaking, you're gonna see it used out of an air dodge, in which case it's far less beneficial than essentially any other frame 1 move. There are a lot of situations where triggering this can be actively detrimental, and the thing is, that's actually relatively easy to do accidentally because a consequence of having this is that Bayonetta's normal air dodge is frame 5, which is exceedingly slow. Even the heavyweights typically top out at frame 4. That said, there are some characters, and I think Sheik is the prime example here, that do rely on very tight combos, often with a frame or 2 of leeway built in, where it turns out that just having any frame 1 escape option, even a relatively mediocre one, is still just downright insane. All of the examples I'm showing on screen right now are from one match, and I think not even all of the examples from that match. You'll see Bayonetta's stock get saved multiple times by Bat Within, in situations where the vast majority of characters would just be dead. There are obviously other instances where this pops up. Mewtwo's confusion to forward air is a notable kill confirm that fails to frame 1 escapes. But against Sheik specifically, it really is just a non-stop thorn in her side, and very broken. Getting close to the end here, our penultimate choice is Sora's counter. Essentially every counter's effectiveness fluctuates quite a bit depending on the matchup, if for no other reason than edge guarding. In competitive play, that's what you tend to use them for. And even in that most conventional use case, it maybe applies to Sora more than any other character. He's just very good at edge guarding in general. He's very floaty with that massive jump, can cover a lot of space, but more than that, his counter has the unique property of freezing opponents in place for a moment, which means it won't whiff as often as other counters do. Things get more interesting though when you realize this freezing effect also also pulls opponents out of invincibility, meaning that no whiffing property applies even to moves that literally no other counter is even capable of hitting. And things get more interesting again when you realize that some recoveries poke above the ledge. Yeah, okay, buddy, I admire the optimism, but you ain't grabbing that. Now, this is absolutely relevant, make no mistake, but at the very least, Ken has multiple recovery paths, Banjo-Kazooie have multiple recovery paths. Okay, but what if you're King K. Rool, though? What's your plan B? He can do things like throw his Crownerang and stall for a bit with up air, and those can be some passable mix-ups against edge guarding, but if you're not planning to go off stage after him, they don't really matter. King K. Rool has exactly one recovery tool, and it always pokes above the ledge whether he likes it or not. There aren't too many matchups where it's that big a deal, and it can even be beneficial because it forces your opponent to give you space. But against Sora, it's downright catastrophic. Countering this is incredibly easy and consistent, and yes, you are countering part of a multi-hit, so it's not the strongest knockback you get, but that barely even matters. You can still just straight up kill King K. Rool, but even if you don't, you put him into such a horrendous situation that if you know what you're doing at any reasonable percent, he's not making it back anyway, essentially ever. It's fortunate that the Sora King K. Rool matchup is not very common in competitive play because it's just so sad to watch unfold. You know how these events are going to roll out well in advance. And the worst part is, Sora didn't even need this. He's already a great edge guarder, and King K. Rool's already vulnerable once he's off stage. Sora can definitely go out there and finish off stocks just fine, but now he doesn't even need to. That's broken. A couple honorable mentions before we check out. Incineroar's Revenge has that same "you'd better not poke above the ledge" thing going on with it. The problem with putting it on the list is that it's insanely broken all the time. Similar logic applies to Bowser's Flying Slam. It's an incredible kamikaze tool against characters who can't make it back after he drags them to the bottom blast zone, but even just as a more general purpose command grab, it's way too good. Falco's Reflector is probably just the best pure, traditional anti-projectile move. Frame 1 reflection with that kind of range, are you kidding? There are a handful of characters where Mario's Flood can make their lives a living hell, and if you want to take the title's prompt in an entirely different direction, Lucario's not broken. Oh, now he is. The Ice Climbers aren't broken. Oh, wait, now they are. Mr. Game & Watch's Judge isn't broken. Oh, yep, okay, I think you get the idea. And finally, we have a move that I've hated from the bottom of my soul since the first day of the game, Ness's Down Smash. I play a character without a hitbox on his recovery. Guess what the cheapest move in the entire game is against characters without hitboxes on their recovery? Now, to be fair, to get optimal results, it does take at least some modicum of timing on the NES player's part. You can't literally just hold it out for free, but come on, man, compared to like any other move in the game, it's so little timing. The risk-reward ratio here is just so over the top. I can't believe Sakurai took the "this is a toddler character" allegations over the years and decided to turn that into a challenge. I don't care if this is how gravity physics work, Sakurai, I don't like it. Oh, and a lot of this rant technically does apply to Up Smash too, but that one at least, feels like it has a proper role to play on his kit as well, whereas Down Smash was put on this earth solely to make a subset of the player base really hate Ness, which, come to think of it, actually includes Rosalina players now. There's a conspiracy theory to go out on because you know what? I think that'll do it for today. Thanks for watching, everyone. Anything I missed, let me know. It may pop up in the future. Likes and comments help videos grow on YouTube, so if you think it's warranted, much appreciated. You can check out another MockRock Talk video here, a video on MockRock below, and patrons, members, and subs get perks like early videos and Discord access. Later, people.